you got to really manage your economy. And we were just trying it for this event. You know what? Why not try it for the biggest event of the year?
I don't understand what FPX was doing, and they lose to North America. How
You're
the hell? It doesn't make sense.
This is supposed to be
Make it make sense, man.
We're just gonna drop it, just like unfortunately Ghost Gaming dropped their team. Biggest surprise for Champions so far this weekend. I want to know your highs and lows. What's been the biggest surprise for you? What hasn't been the biggest surprise maybe into this weekend if it was just like a regular Tuesday? Tanner, what do you have going on for this weekend? What was the biggest surprise for you for Champions?
Yeah, so I thought mine might not be the most exciting, but I thought it was really exciting that EDG showed up and played the way that they did. Given, you know, everything coming into this, right? They have so much pressure on their shoulders to really compete in the biggest tournament of the year. It's their first time sharing this stage with some of the largest names in the world, in the history of Valorant, the very short history. And EDG went off, especially in this first map, though, right? This is what I want to talk about. They come into this one, they have a sub. This game goes the distance. It's a brand new map. It's on the biggest stage. And again, the pressure is on for EDG, and there's so much mounting. And on top of that, KK went 8-0 in first blood, first death. So I thought this really stood out to me. I know a lot of people expected good things out of EDG, but when you just look at, I guess, the situation at hand, you know, with it being their first time, with it being champions, like this is it. This is the cream of the crop. You're playing the number 2 to kick it off, and you're doing it on Pearl with a substitute. I thought that was really cool for these guys.
See, that's the thing that's surprising for me, though, Tanner Metro, because if you're looking at Edward Gaming, they actually played better with the sub than they did when Life actually came back to play with them against Team Liquid for map number 2. So is it surprising for me that they maybe didn't perform to expectations is probably where I lean towards to for Edward Gaming, because for a lot of people, this was supposed to be the favorite to upset the dark horse of the tournament. And unfortunately, they go fucking 0-4. So is that really a surprising result for Edward Gaming, Kaplan, going into this event?
I don't think so. You know, I'm hyped they even made it this far. They didn't have much. They didn't have much time after qualifying for champs to prep, and you know, especially with the sub, it's probably hard to like cook up a new look for champs. I was a little surprised they brought in all the same comps that they ran basically in the qualifier to get here, but not too surprised with the final result, sadly. Not to say I'm not an EDG fan.
So it was surprising how well they did the first map at the first international event with the substitute on the new map. That makes my thing sound way more surprising.
They couldn't pull an FPX when their actual 5th came in and then win the whole thing. So I don't know, man. You didn't sell me the big bucks in here, Tanner Metro. I'm gonna have to ask you
listen,
next time.
I'm not an EDG fan. They surprised the hell out of me. I expected nothing from EDG. I put way too much weight and experience, Bucks. That's why I rooted against NA. I didn't root against NA. Sorry, I picked against NA. I'm not rooting against NA. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
This guy's on our fucking show?
No.
This guy's on our fucking show?
I'm the EMEA guy now. Okay, there, I said it.
Oh,
I'm just joking.
We need one. That's fair.
Fan.
I'm not going to be the EMEA guy.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of EMEA fans, right? So if you are an EMEA fan, Tanner Metro, you are actually a fan of FPX. And FPX actually did win versus XSET over the weekend. And Kaplan, I think that was probably one of your biggest surprises looking at XSET playing against FPX, especially on Pearl.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, 100 Thieves looked good against Fnatic, and then you're going into seeing XSET play FPX, big favorite in FPX, right? XSET didn't look so good in Copenhagen. Definitely would not have expected them to win. They did win 2-1, but still, what a wild series. Every game was like fast and single digits. The Pearl just trashed FPX to start it out. I did not see XSET winning this. Before the day started.
BCJ was basically my surprise going into that series too. That man was fucking on fire. That was really, really fun to watch. If not for me, I think my biggest surprise looking at this weekend was somehow a Phoenix being used outside of a map of Ascent. So we've seen a lot of good trap plays from EG that started things off. Then Liquid started using it on Ascent, but then suddenly Liquid decides to pull a trump card, pulling out a Phoenix on Breeze. I was like, holy shit, this is going to be like probably one of those masters where you think they have it in the bag, they look really good, then they change their comps and they look like fucking shit. Thankfully, like for me, honestly, it didn't look too much. I wasn't too convinced. Look at it. It even says nothing found, everything in the middle of that block when you had Scream come out on the stats. Like, I honestly didn't see too much coming out of that Phoenix overall. It was actually other players for Team Liquid that actually helped Liquid win that matchup. And it was a battle of trying to figure out who was going to finally win in overtime or who was going to have like a better defense in the end, especially when you have an agent like Phoenix trying to play this on defense. I think you talked about it at some point as well, Kaplan, as this was a surprising pick. For me, it was like seeing a Phoenix is like, okay, it'll be nice to play through a Phoenix wall to fight towards maybe left side or right side of ladder room or into Berlin through the wall on B. But if not, you just flash through a Viper wall on A site and fight towards left side pyramid and span box. That's basically what I saw, and that's what happened. But it wasn't the game changer for me to see Liquid with this Phoenix. What are your thoughts on this?
I totally agree. I was not a big believer in the Phoenix. Got right on the Twitter timeline about it. Saw all these people going, "Oh, it's going to be cool. He's got this smoke wall, guys. It's a really big open map. You know, you can throw these walls down. It'll help." Well, by the way, there's this other duelist that's really good and has a wall. Her name's Neon. You should check her out. She runs really fast. She can run around this big map. You know, run right out onto the site. This team called Fnatic made her look really good yesterday. Definitely worth checking out. Not a Phoenix believer, let alone on Breeze. Didn't understand it.
Yeah, and even maybe it was like the fast flashes to go through the corners or something like that, which would have been maybe one of the things that surprises the Opera on the left side of Pyramid if they want to try to run that into their strat book. Right. But in the end, they still got it. They still made it through. But to play against a team like Edward Gaming to pull that out, that was definitely a scary one. Thankfully, there was going to be a third map if needed be. But you just mentioned Fnatic right here at Kaplan as like using a Neon, how they look pretty good and stuff like that as well. But there were some instances during their match and their series versus 100 Thieves where even the community was a little bit flabbergasted of what was going on in terms of like the macro strategy around Fnatic, and that's around the armor buys. So I know we were calling it like the NRG style in North America, but even Frost, currently coaching for Team Nearest Airport, was mentioned that this even existed even further back. So Weltis is one of like recently now analysts for Sentinels, brought it out upon himself as well to call out Fnatic on the blunders in his opinion in terms of these half armor buys where you have like 4 rounds left into the half. You still have so many credits. It doesn't make sense that you're buying actually so many half buy rounds and so many half buys. And even Kanga came out with this screenshot too, saying like, even look at the last round of this half where it's 6-5. You still see Boaster at the bottom right there as an Astra holding a half shield, but still has 1,800 credits. But Boaster had a nice little reply in the Twitter feed, but he also had a reply in a post-match interview after 100 Thieves to talk about it. So let's have a listen.
Honestly, we're not sure about it, but essentially we just wanted to make sure we had as many buys as possible. And I was thinking, and like there's like probably stats around it or something, but yeah, I just remember thinking in my ranked games, I was like, Phantom is 4 bullets on the chest to kill, and if you headshot them, they're dead anyway, because generally you play close range with the Phantom. It's rare that you play long range. And the Vandal's 1-shot headshot anyway, and 4 bullets still with light armor. So it's pretty much the same. The only thing is you could get one tapped, or if util comes at you, then it's a bit scarier. But other than that, like it just meant that we could maybe get a few more buys in and able to kind of, once we built our economy, we'd go for the full armors to kind of, because we had the money. But the game is so like, especially if you lose pistols, you don't have many rounds. Like you could win the first buy and then you lose the next one and then you've got no money again. You're back on eco, and then it's like, so you got to really manage your economy. So we were just trying it for this event. You know what? Why not try it for the biggest event of the year?
I just love the last sentence about it too, but
yeah,
I guess at the same time it kind of makes sense. Daniel, do you mind just pulling out that scoreboard about the economy, about the Fnatic versus 100 Thieves, so that we could actually talk about it a little bit more too, and have your thoughts, Kaplan, in terms of this half armor buy? Because Boaster talks about it, especially when you lose pistol, it gets really hard to like try to rule your economy. And if you're looking at it from the economy's perspective out of this match, this is their first map on Pearl when they played against 100 Thieves here, and Fnatic lost both pistols. But if you look at the bottom half, the bottom of the economy, there's like 8 rounds in a row where, you know, they've only ecoed once, basically, that $1 sign that came into the second round where they were trailing from behind. So for them, it gives us some sort of an advantage to have more rifles within the games, or even more utility when you think about how expensive the initiator utility could be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes sense. I think you know, when you're diving into this, and you know, I would love to spend like an entire middle of my week looking into the stats and figuring out exactly what's optimal, but you know, it's important to remind yourselves you can't really do that in the middle of a game. You're preparing for champs. It's Mini, it's Boaster, it's maybe they have some analyst help. They certainly do. Sorry.
Yeah,
I think it's tough to perfectly execute it, and it's easy to hindsight and be like, well, actually, you should have full bot this round because you only had X amounts of rounds left. You can see looking at the bank there that it didn't look like they overpiled money up too much, and I think the idea is there, and perfect execution is pretty impossible when you're an IGL in the middle of a server thinking about 15 other things in every freeze time.
Yeah.
Well, I want to jump in and just to you, Cap. Don't you feel that Boaster even said in that interview that he was doing, well, if some utility gets tossed at you, then it kind of gets scary. Like, I feel like that's the running joke with Valorant, that utility isn't supposed to do everything, but utility really is everything, right? So if you're 125 health, you're probably playing against an Astra, you're probably playing against a Viper. Now you're vulnerable from 2 of those abilities, and now the 4 shots from the Phantom becomes 2 body shots, or same thing with the Vandal, right? It's like, I feel like the amount of utility in Valorant should be enough to sway you away from, you know, being okay to have 25 less health.
Yeah. It's also, if you're playing, as Boaster has mentioned, you're playing close range with the Phantom as well, and you're basically bursting that a little bit more than tapping with the Vandal, then you could actually bring a little bit more out of it too, but the utility is still important. I think I actually even reached out to Josh RT, the head coach of Energy, to see his thoughts, because, you know, when I mentioned it, like, Energy was the first one in North America, we're like, holy shit, they're doing it, half buys all the time, what the fuck's going on? So then Josh RT said, the half armor gives you more money to rebuy. Basically, I'll paraphrase it a bit, right? So you get 600 extra credits, and it's basically the same train of thought as what Boaster was saying. You could get more gun rounds within the half, but as if you look in the middle of the paragraph, he's now talking about 50-50 chances if you're going to go with, you know, gun rounds versus gun rounds, or worse, 40 to 60% in terms of win ratio if you're actually going for a full eco, etc. and etc. So that said, just looking at those numbers and the way that he's trying to explain it tends to tell you that there's actually a lot of calculations that has to be done in the back end, and a lot of moving pieces as to figure out when you actually should go for these half buys or not, because you have to think about, where are you in the max loss bonus? Where are you right now is how many players you kill within the next round? What's the economy of your opponents within the next round? What's the ultimate orbs that you have within the next round? What does your opponents have? And you have to put that all into consideration on top of the economy that you have, to figure out if you had the best chances with the 600 credits that you saved. So it tends a little bit further into the superficial, holy shit, they're only half buying every single time, and there's still 4 rounds left. But that is something that Weltis should be doing in terms of calculation in my eyes, because I am not a numbers guy. So that said, that's why we're just gonna drop it, just like, unfortunately, Ghost Gaming dropped their team. So that was the latest announcement that came out here for North America in terms of roster changes. Wasn't it the best transition ever?
That was incredible.
It's a little awkward, I know, because Kaplan, you are here, but I mean, Kaplan, this is definitely sad news, of course, because for me, like, looking at you guys, it's like, I mean, I had you guys going into the group stages anyways, qualifying from the open bracket and or open qualifiers, and nobody wanted to believe me. And then you guys brought some awesome fucking shit to the table going into the main group stages. And then after seeing that you didn't make it into the partnership program, but that potentially you would still stick together and that Ghost would still stay within the scene after everything that was announced in the tier 2 scene, was that surprising to you? Because it almost felt like when we had these conversations that, you know, it was greener pastures going into the tier 2 scene.
Um, no, it wasn't too surprising to me, and I think when people look at this, something they need to think about is it's not just does Ghost want to be in Valorant, does the team want to be in Valorant? It's almost a tougher spot to have, and this maybe comes off arrogant because I'm talking about my own team, but one of the best teams in tier 2, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to look at your roster and think how much of this roster is going to try to get into a partnered team, or is a partnered team going to try to grab them? How much is this roster going to cost? You know, if they're top 1, 2, 3 tier 2 teams, and I can't blame Ghost there. It's definitely something to understand. Is like we would have been a very expensive tier 2 team, I imagine, and I think it would have been hard to keep the core of the team probably even together because there's just a lot of talent that belongs in the partnered league.
Yeah, that's a sad part here, Kaplan, because if and also Tanner, I want to know your thoughts too, because after that tweet from that we just saw here from Nismo saying that he's Ghost is letting him explore different opportunities, different teams if the offer's on the table. It means to me that this core team that was looking so awesome during the group stages for North America Stage 2 is not going to be sticking together moving forward.
Yeah, that was my initial thought when I saw it like that. That's why I even made a tweet, right? I hope that this team stays together and just continues to play it out, right? Because you have these, obviously Nurse Street's a little bit longer, but you have these 50Ks that pop up. You've got the 10Ks, the 15Ks, whatever they are. And we just talked to Anderson about it the other day, right? And when he said, his team's breaking up, or even when like Nearest Airport want to go their separate ways, or Dark Zero, whatever it was, he said like, hey, we stuck together because we get along well. We love each other as people. We want to keep competing. And Ghost Gaming, obviously, I don't know the ins and outs, Cap. Maybe you know a bit more of what's going on there, but I feel like there should be a fire kind of lit under your ass right now to want to keep competing, especially as a 5, because, well, maybe that's just, I don't know. It's so difficult because I think about it like caster brain. I'm like, being picked up as a solo caster kind of sucks because then they have to take a chance on you working with somebody new. But these pro teams, they don't care, right? I don't know if, the TSM makes into the partnership program, they might just be looking for 1 or 2 and pick up the Nismos and the Koalas and not look for a full 5. So yeah, I really feel like, I don't know, it's a dog eat dog world. And it does seem like they kind of are just looking out for themselves.
For sure. Anything to add, Kaplan?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think obviously the team is all confident in the team. Like we've done a lot together and we absolutely love being a team together. The Discord's still active here and there, the group text here and there. Still enjoying looking at VLR and seeing Ghostbusters 5th in NA. I think it's definitely believable that we could compete in things together, and it's believable, although maybe not likely that the whole roster could end up under a new opportunity. We'll see. Impossible to say. I think we're all very open to it, but you got to be realistic too, and I think everybody here wants to, everybody that works their ass off in Valorant's doing it to get into the top level, which is a partnered team. And I don't think anyone on the team would hold themselves back from that opportunity.
For sure. And yeah, again, my transition was a little bit,
that shit was cold.
It was a little bit toxic. My bad, Kaplan. My bad, Kaplan.
No, I loved it. I was unfazed. Don't worry.
But at least what's not toxic? It's actually the Juke.gg app, our second sponsor for the show today, of course. A big thank you to Juke.gg, where they actually have a social media platform for all you gamers out there to download on your Apple Store or your Google Play, and they actually advocate for non-toxicity onto their application. So you see a lot less posting of me on that one from time to time, if not live for Valoranting, but at least when I'm actually following my games, such as Valorant, following Champions currently, I actually have up-to-date news of what's going on as well through notifications, and I get to interact with those as well. So it's actually a pretty cool app. Make sure you guys check it out, Juke.gg, on your App Store and your Google Play. But also, speaking more realistically and not being toxic, to go back on that previous topic as well, Kaplan, I think you've been an amazing IGL and also an amazing coach for, what was it, Echo 7 before going into Ghost Gaming. What was that team name you had with Rob Wiz? Sorry?
Code 7.
Code 7, that's
the
it.
The OG Stinger abusers.
I was going to mention that later on. We're going to talk about crew during the Champions later on in our show, so we'll definitely have a conversation about that. But yeah, best of luck, Kaplan. I'm pretty sure you'll land on your feet in no time.
Thank you, everyone.
And speaking about landing on your feet, some players actually didn't land on anything at all when it came down to their matches during Champions. And that's Boom Esports against Crashies of Optic Gaming on Fracture. This is probably the best ace, maybe not the fastest ace that I've seen before, but the best ace that you could actually see here on LAN at a champion stage where 5 players are trying to rotate through the ropes and Crashies just literally ADSs and just taps for a 5-player ace, where I'm pretty sure we saw the clips go around as well as to the comms. Everybody was laughing around. For you guys, was it probably like the best ace that you've seen on LAN so far? Started with you, Tanner.
Yeah, nothing tops this. I think nothing tops this. Oh man. Okay, I'm gonna take that back because obviously there are cooler aces out there. But the chances for this to happen, that for whatever reason, all 5 people are taking the zip line across at the same exact time, and Optic just happened to be trying to crunch towards that top side of the map, and Crashies is there. It literally is 1 in a million for chances. The timing, it worked out so perfectly. Also, nobody shot back. They Boom just kind of accepted their fates. Even though the rope's not the most accurate, you could have tried to do something. I don't know. I think that was really cool. That is, by the chances alone, one of the best aces I think we've seen at LAN.
Especially if you're actually fucking 5 players on ropes.
Yeah,
with
like what do you
a
do? You
gun
don't have
round.
one person just staying on the other side?
I don't know if these guys ever seen fucking Icebox, a site, but you could actually get some good headshots going through that shit. So maybe, I don't fucking know, but I mean, we had some fun reactions going at it and watching it. I'm pretty sure the casters did as well when you were listening to any actually casters from any region throughout the ace. But I think one of the hypest ones outside of the ones that I heard from North America was for sure the Korean casters. So let's have a listen to their hypeness.
이런 더블 플레이가 좋아요.
근데 이거 지금 기다리고 있어요. 자, 이거 너무 적적 다 잡습니다. 에이스입니다. 아니 이제 가을 추수의 계절.
If I did that shit during a broadcast, Reddit would be like, why is he always screaming? Why is he always screaming? This guy's a fucking shit caster. And then you have one person be like, yo, but Vansilli's been casting for 20 years in esports. But then everybody else will reply, but who cares? He's hyping up for no reason. They're on a rope. They could have just died. Why? And that's probably the clip that's going to go right now to be like, why is Vansilli yelling all the time on fucking Valoranting? But these type of plays, to me, should be one of those moments where we actually should have, you know, the CSGO style graffitis in Valorant. And we actually ran a poll as well for Valoranting on our socials. You guys could follow us on Valoranting and also, of course, on youtube.com/Valoranting. Why don't you follow us on TikTok at the same time, Valoranting_DNP. Always behind times. We always put we always get our name later, but at least to start things off on TikTok, it'll be Valoranting_DNP. But Kaplan, do you think that these moments weren't for graffitis in the style of CSGO, or do you think we should have something different that should be part of Valorant itself?
I mean, it's interesting because the maps change a lot more than in CS, right? Like, not only are we gonna see more maps and more rotating out, but also like the maps themselves change. I always thought it'd be cool if there was like graffitis or things to like commemorate certain old parts about maps that they maybe fix or remove. I think graffitis could be cool, but it feels kind of, I don't know why it feels early because the game's been around for 2.5 years now, but like 2.5 years in, and for this specific like moment, it was really entertaining, but it was so early in a tournament. I just don't know. I don't know if we have the criteria for what's memorable.
It wasn't impactful. Yeah. Thoughts, Tanner? Like, maybe not on that plane itself, but like just graffitis in general. Should it be in? Should these moments be in Valorant?
Yeah, I think it would be cool. Again, the graffitis, like Kaplan was saying, things could change, and it might be a little difficult to say, like, put a picture of a Raze blast packing into heaven to dodge a Raze rocket, but I think it would be really cool, and I'm sure that Riot is thinking of a way to add something like that. They always come through.
Yeah, well, at least the casters are screaming a lot about that, about the repel of the 5 players from Boom Esports going through Fracture. But you know who else is screaming throughout that whole weekend? A lot of the players on the toilet seat, because apparently somehow in Istanbul there's a stomach flu going around and everybody's fucking getting sick and getting diarrhea on the toilet seats. So they're having a battle themselves with their bathrooms. And of course, joking aside, one of the most serious cases being artists going to the hospital but then coming back somehow in map 2 and just fucking dominating in the second map on Fracture, playing what was it, Chamber against Exit.
Chamber, yeah.
That was pretty fucking sick. But speaking about sickness again, it seems as though there's something rampant that's been going on, maybe in something in the food that they eat. Even not only into food poisoning, but there's also been lots of cases of COVID. So even 100 Thieves, they actually had players that couldn't even play on the stage before. And even when they actually did play on stage, they didn't even come out to the right names. They're really called out too. So if I'm speaking about 100 Thieves, I don't know if you guys saw the walkouts. It was pretty funny for that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't seem like there was any type of like real quote-unquote bitching from the players or the coaches or the talent versus how they're currently being treated by Riot through this situation. So it seems like it's been handled pretty well here, Tanner.
Yeah, and I talked to Mimi about it when we chatted a little bit yesterday, and she said that she thinks that it's kind of just like a stomach bug, like not even something they're eating or something that they're doing. Also, I'm sure you guys saw on the timeline with, recent events, anytime people come from all over, I guess just, North America for one of our lands, everybody gets sick. So now, you multiply that by 1 million because we're coming from everywhere in the world to meet up in Istanbul. And yeah, you're gonna get sick. It sucks. I really wish you would have made an artist was shitting himself and then shit on Xset joke, Vansilli. I think that would have been great at the top there, because he did do that.
Look at this guy with his EMEA copium still. Artists played super well in that second map, man. He dropped so many kills. They still fucking lost, Tanner. Xset still moved forward.
Dude, listen, I am an NA fan. Okay, I'm an NA fan, but like I said, I put too much in the experience box, and NA doesn't have a whole lot of experience. I am happy for
Chad,
NA.
I think this guy's fucking capping, because
come on, guys, come on.
It's not Kaplan.
It's me.
It's Tanner that's
capping.
capping. Like 20 minutes ago with the clip, it said that you were a fucking EMEA fan. Look at this guy just fucking flip-flopping like a fucking fish.
We need an EMEA fan on the show. I think Tanner's taking a bullet for us, being that guy.
Okay, fine. Let's give him the yeah, whatever. I don't give a fuck. Who else doesn't give a fuck about the stomach bug? It's also Alphayer, because he seemed to be unflustered at all during the interview with the rest of the team when they were actually talking in their post-match interview, because apparently everybody got hit by it but him. So let's have a listen.
Well,
everyone's fine today, right?
No, I've still got a bit of a tummy ache. I can't lie. After this game, I went to the toilet. But I don't know.
I think I'm the last one who didn't have it. Last one standing.
Yeah, Dirk is the last one standing.
Yeah.
Alphayer is immune to it somehow.
Well, he's Turkish.
Because he's Turkish, maybe?
I thought he had it today, no?
Have you had the stomach ache?
Maybe he's on air condition. I don't think so,
okay.
because
I think he had
I wake
it,
up and I'm feeling like I'm
he had
freezing.
it.
Okay. So no, I think it's just one of those things that it's not something that we can focus on, and it's not something that we can like let kind of be an excuse for performances that we're not happy with. Everyone's got to go through it. Like everyone's dealing with it. So we're just gonna kind of work with it and just see what happens.
So apparently maybe Alphayer did have something after all, but minor versus everybody else. But who wasn't phased by that was actually Durka. So maybe ball buff also means that you also don't get anything going on in terms of COVID or just food sickness or whatnot, right? So that's good for him. That said, though, just listen to Mini talk during the interview in their post match right there. I guess it was after that Furious series, which was pretty intense, which we'll talk about later on in the show, but. You've mentioned it before, Kaplan, where going into this event, Fnatic actually does have a little bit more than just Mini to support the team. It's actually somebody that has been working with one of the players in the past, if I'm not mistaken. That said, let's have a talk about that. Does more coaches equal better results? Because even if you're looking at maybe VLR or anything that's going on being announced, such as like a team like DRX, they currently have like 4 coaches in their roster right now. When DRX actually won their series, there's like 18 guys that walked into the stage with them to just high fives and hug each other and do the owner impersonation of, yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about when I'm just grunting and heaving on the microphone while you're reading through all this. But yes, there's definitely a lot of coaches that have been coming out. Assistant coaches have been picked up last minute as well. to prepare and help some teams play during the Champions games. And I want to know if this is this an issue of maybe too many cooks in the kitchen to look at, for example, Fnatic's results? Is this a recipe for success looking at DRX's results? Or is it just going to be something that has to be continued moving forward? Because if you look at 100 Thieves, they've just invested more into their coaching staff than an all-star list of players, and 100 Thieves could be a third team that makes it out of groups into Champions for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so based on that, Kaplan, do you think it's just like too many people? Is this a good thing, a bad thing?
I think it can't, if it's too many cooks in the kitchen, if it's a bad thing, that's the fault of the head coach, right? Like, there's some head coaches out there who don't need much help. They have a ton of it under control themselves, maybe with the IGL. There's other head coaches that probably need a lot of help, and they have a lot. If you're a head coach and you bring in a bunch of help and then it takes you off track, that's a problem of how much you place your trust or how much you directed people. It can't hurt as long as you handle it correctly. That's the way I see it.
Well, so go ahead, Tanner. Go ahead, Tanner.
I was gonna say, how would you go through in that scenario? Like, if you as a head coach are looking for more work, right? I feel like you mentioned trust. There's got to be so much, right? That like the ability to be on the same page as your other coaches. How do you find that? Because I feel like if you give somebody a job and they're going at the job not in the same mind that you would go at that, and then they come back to you and you're just like, well, shit, I have to do this all over again, right? How do you go about finding people that are like-minded about the game, perfectly? I feel like that is the one thing that escapes every good team or every good coaching staff. How do you find that, Cap?
I think you have to know how to ask the right questions when you look for staff. Like, two things to look out for is when Chet was looking for an analyst, he gave analysts specific tasks to do, basically notes on certain games to fill out and then hand to him as an application process. Obviously, he's doing that because I'm making the assumption, but I'm confident in it, that Chet has watched those games. He knows what good notes would say. He knows what to look out for. So it's basically just a test. And then the case of Mini grabbing help, he said he specifically wanted people to show him comps and game plans, and then he can just look through it. And if he has confidence in his own views, he can basically see, does this make sense as a lineup with my philosophy about the game or not, right? Like, just making sure the people you work with can keep up with you when you discuss the game and so on. And I think they both set examples of how you can do that.
Yeah, because I remember watching Sliggy's watch party too over the weekend, and Nelzinho, most recently, I think was coaching for Dark Zero, if I'm not mistaken, and now is helping out FPS as an analyst. And he was saying how he's just helping out Doom Bros, finding like timings and stuff like that on utilities and whatnot, instead of really trying to develop a playbook. So it really comes down more specifically to what your head coach wants, and if you could fill that gap with your experience. And even Viserov in the chat right now says, at minimum, you need at least a strategy-focused guy and someone with a data background. And I'm saying that in chat because we actually have a live show every week as well, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/DNP. Another shout out to you to Twitch. So that said, yeah, I think it's really subjective and dependent at the same time, where you want somebody that has more data or not. But as long as it works out, as long as you're not overlapping against in the rules, you'll be in a pretty good spot.
Well, Vance, how the hell did FPX with Doom Bros complaining in the interviews about not having enough prep time, how the hell did they win Copenhagen? They get some extra help and they lose to North America. How the hell? It doesn't make sense.
This is supposed to be
make
a rhetorical...
Make sense, man.
This is supposed to be a rhetorical question because you're the EMEA fan right now, Tanner. So
yeah, and you know what? I'm rethinking it, and I'm thinking, hang on. All right. Welcome back, North America, Tanner. Yeah, it's stupid. More coaches sucks.
No, but for real, at least FPX, Doom Bros 1 hasn't slept at all. And I think there was actually some people in the background that was actually working with Doom Bros at the same time, too, while he was doing all the VOD reviews and not sleeping at all. And I think they went through a huge Cinderella run, with Sugetsu joining the roster. And speaking about players, actually, that joins rosters, we actually had an announcement of a rejoin to a roster, which is unfortunately bittersweet for this certain player, which is, of course, Zellsis. So Zellsis had a great run with Sentinels, a great run to 100,000 followers, a great run to the Twitter verification, but unfortunately not a great run through the LCQ, and that closes the doors, and then he goes back home to version 1. So I think he's still happy going back into version 1. Still a little bit sad because of the great memories that he's had that he's made with Sentinels actually in the past, and got to like build a shit ton of clout with that team. But overall, I think for sure, for me personally, this is a loss for Sentinels and a regain for version 1. And I want to know your thoughts to continue on to this topic, Tanner.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Sentinels just signed Tech. They had to get the money from somewhere, right? So they got to start getting people out of here to get some other people in. I am really curious as to what Sentinels are doing over there, because it was like bring Shroud in, now Shroud's out, bring Zellsis in, bring Zellsis out, and so kind of seeing where they land is going to be super interesting to see. But I like this. I think Zellsis for version 1 is kind of his home. I think he can do it as a player. Obviously, we saw in that video scrim room, but also as a content creator, right? Does incredible on his own when he's just doing his own thing in his own streams and stuff. So I think this is super cool. Like you said, I think Sentinels are going to be hurting from losing a player like Zellsis. So it's kind of like a level up for version 1. And they needed it. Hey, version 1, they needed some help. So they're probably happy to have him back too.
Well, let's mention that a little bit too in terms of the, we always talk about scrim bucks during the tournaments, but now it's time to talk about the roster bucks and the partnership bucks. Kaplan, what the fuck's going on in the back end, in the back scene? Because version 1, are they going into the next stages of the partnership program? Has that been announced yet? Probably not. So if Zellsis is going back to version 1, what is going to be that roster?
Impossible to say. I think everything. Look, I know it's the boring answer. It's not what you want to hear, but I think everything is just at this standstill until partnered teams get announced.
Lie to us, Cap. Just lie to us.
All right, we're gonna bring Nothing back. We're gonna put Shroud on a team with him. I hear Freakazoid might be looking around.
Hell yeah! I'd be fucking down.
I wish I
team,
could.
Man. Dude, I've been watching Stewie 2K playing some fucking money 10 men to try to get back into the scene, to try to get into the Valorant scene as well. So
yeah, it looks like he's working pretty hard to, and I think he's playing really well. Yeah,
he's working pretty hard. He was getting shit on by Zeppa, but it's a learning experience. And an L is a win in terms of L for learning, and I think that's the good part too. Right. And I think, and we played that clip I think a week or two ago on Valoranting to talk about how Stewie 2K wanted to be so dedicated into getting into Valorant. So with his type of tenure and his type of experience, I'm sure he'll be at the top in no time. That said, let's go back into actually talking about I talked about revisiting clips. Let's revisit a topic that we mentioned even last week, and that's we had a brief overview and a discussion over Pearl. And Pearl actually has been used and played a shit ton, actually, in Champions, which was quite surprising for me. I almost feel that Pearl was played more than Split has within the rotation. And surprisingly enough, this also should have been the biggest surprise too, in my opinion, that the map actually looked pretty fun to watch as a spectator during Champions. So I want to know your thoughts here, Tanner, to start things off with this Viper versus no Viper that we had the conversation about before.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. And I thought we lined that up perfectly, weeks prior, where you had mentioned kind of Viper as your mainstay on this map. Now, there's a lot to take away. There's a lot to kind of dig into for the Viper team that won, right? Because it was PRX. I'm sorry, the Viperless team that won. It was PRX, no Viper, versus EDG with Viper. It was the first match of the tournament. The only thing that really stood out to me is Chichu had some really awkward walls. And I wish I would have given this to you guys before, but on defense, the way that Chichu was working the Viper wall was deep into, it was cutting off the B-Link area, and is basically thrown from spawn, cutting off B-Link and B-Long, like right down the middle at the pillar. And then as we saw teams that were winning with Viper use the Viper wall, they were actually on that B site in screens and tossing it all the way down B-Long and cutting off that space and allowing teams to push up so far. But still, again, for the retake, it's like a great retake wall. And so I think maybe nerves, maybe first match of an international tournament for EDG. That's why the Viper team lost. But I think they were doing some wonky things. But as a spectator, it was a lot of fun to watch that map. It was really fun to see when we talked about, tier 2 NA playing it with Nearest Airport doing it. And it was like hit A every single time or 5-stack long B. And we did see a little bit of that 5-stack long B. But a team's working mid a whole lot more. Their protocols out towards mid I thought looked really good. I don't know about the Vipers still. I feel it really is kind of going either way.
So surprisingly enough for me, the team that worked mid the most, I think, was FPX, if I'm not mistaken, right? There was like a 1 minute timer where they were trying to do a lot of these crunches towards mid. I could be wrong if it was that team, because like I said, there was a lot of Pearl that was being played throughout that weekend. But at least if you want to talk about the Pearl being played and what we do have actually in terms of clips, and you're a fond advocate about this agent on this map, is actually Fnatic playing a Neon on Pearl. And what are your thoughts about this? I want to know it coming straight from the coach of Ghostbusters as to why is Neon the pick on Pearl?
Okay, so I think you either got to run Viper or Neon for sure. There's just these long areas toward B, and like Tanner mentioned, especially the cross into kind of the back halls elbow area of B, you really need some coverage there. So you can kind of run Viper or Neon, but Viper's somebody I really like on maps where you're like defaulting a lot and playing like really long rounds. You can like turn off and on the smokes a lot, get value out of that, like split. And I think that when you deep dive into Pearl, I'll save the chat the boredom, but the map ends up playing a lot more aggressive than I think people would first think, and Neon's perfect for that. The stuns are great with how tight the map is. You can really just commit to certain sites and rushing them, and then you still get that smoke across into places like B on Neon, so it kind of frees up an extra slot in the comp. It's a personal reason I'm a big believer in Neon. I think she's a great pick, but I think if you're gonna run Neon, you ought to not run the Viper and enjoy running a second initiator like we see Fnatic doing here.
Yeah, because I guess you're talking about the long corridor where the fast lane would basically help you plant those longer areas if you want to go for B, but of course being able to split sites on your hits on A as well, which Viper could definitely do. But I think at least a good idea. I guess we'll talk about it a little bit later. I want to dive deeper into that, especially when we talk about FPX. Actually, no, let's talk about it, because FPX did try to do that or to counter this Neon on against Exit in their series, because Zekin was playing a Neon, right? And for me, Cypher seemed to be the perfect counter into an agent like Neon, because the trips, of course, would block her into her quick dashes into the site. But the cameras could also be something that could be very, very useful, where you don't have a Viper to play like one ways or something like that on defense. So what are your thoughts? How did Exet still were able to beat a team like FPX that seemed to be very prepared for to play against Neon?
I'll say it straight. I don't understand what FPX was doing, and it didn't look as prepared as I would have. I think if you're going to put artists on Cypher instead of a map where it's just like no-brainer Chamber's really strong, it better look super prepared. And I didn't love it. There's not really any trips that are too strong toward holding B. Cypher looks a lot more comfortable in A, but they started him B that half on defense there. There were some rounds where he was just kind of like running around, placing trips after the round started in a way that looked uncomfortable to me. He's playing B-Link with the Raze and a bunch of trips. He's got these like awkward one-ways on B-Long that, he's trying to play with a Vandal. I'm a big believer in Xset's comp. Ghostbusters also run it, but kind of irrelevant to that, I felt that FPX did not look remotely as prepared on the map as I would have expected, considering they didn't have an LCQ they had to play in or anything. They had plenty of time to prep the map, just like Xset.
It almost felt that if Artis was playing with Zipan on the same side on B-Link, was eventually to have one of those trap plays that, even Jink kind of did when PRX was able to get a ping off towards long and you get a showstopper from B-Link into B-Long. But that is one of those trap plays where it never really happened when BCJ and Zekin were popping off the way that they did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to know, moving forward into Pearl, was there any type of composition that was going to be like, okay, we've seen so many variations of it, which one is the best pick out of the ones that we've currently seen throughout the weekend? And I'm putting guys on the spot right now, but let me know, Tanner. What is it? The no Viper way, the way to play in your eyes?
So I, again, looking back when I was kind of scrubbing through the EDG VOD and just seeing how they were playing that Viper each and every round, I don't feel like they got the most out of it. The attacking side, it was always, a wall, across B. One time, I think we saw a wall, but they had to like sneak their way into the defender side and spawn. And Then they were able to wall off Flowers and that secret area. I think EDG just didn't play the Viper to its fullest potential, or didn't really come in with the best game plan as to how to attack or even defend with the Viper. Because again, I think the walls were fairly weak there. I do think the Viper is good, but like Cap was saying, right, you don't really need to double down on your walls, your fast lane, and your toxic screen, and which I think we saw. Was it not? Who was it? It was 100 Thieves that ran. Did 100 Thieves run the Raze with the Viper and ended up picking up that win? So like, I think that is fine, right? The Raze with the Viper, or the Neon with the double initiator. I think both look good. I would like to see more Viper though, just to get a better idea of how teams are actually using this agent specifically, because it can sometimes either go incredibly one-sided and only look to be useful out towards this B site. But I think our sample size is a little small on that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that we're going to be able to get a bigger sample size as soon as Champions resume tomorrow, especially once we get into a rematch of Fnatic against 100 Thieves. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more Pearl in that series and teams continuing to adapt and see what continues to one-up each other to finally figure out which is going to be the best comp. That's going to be the mainstay that we're probably going to use here for Pearl. That said, though, I think that's going to finish up our segments for the rapid fires, because we actually have somebody in the trenches getting ready to come on and talk to us very soon after the break, and that's going to be Raucus, the head coach of Team Sentinels, coming up right after that. But before, one more quick shout out and big thanks to Twitch.tv for sponsoring our show for today as well. This is now 1 month. We are so fucking rich right now, and I could continue to phase up in all these jerseys. So thank you so much, Twitch, for the monies, and we'll see you all after the break.